Have you ever been judged by your job title, your age, or what you were wearing? A moment where someone looked right through you and decided you had nothing to offer? In a quiet diner, a powerful CEO, drowning in a billion-dollar problem, makes that exact mistake. Frustrated and arrogant, he mocks the young waitress serving his coffee, sneering, "If you're so smart, then translate this," and shoves a complex legal document into her hands. But what he thinks is a moment of dismissal is about to become the most humbling and transformative lesson of his life. He's about to learn that brilliance isn't always found in a boardroom. Before we see what happens next, tell us in the comments. What is the biggest mistake people make when they underestimate someone? The gymnasium at Northwood High buzzed with a nervous, electric energy. 23 girls stood in a line, their futures hanging on the words of one woman. Amara Hayes stood third from the left, her hands steady at her sides, a stark contrast to the frantic hammering in her chest. For 3 grueling days of tryouts, she had been flawless. She nailed every routine, hit every mark, and smiled until her cheeks ached, pouring every ounce of her discipline and dedication onto the mat. "Ladies, you've all shown incredible spirit and dedication," Coach Davies began, her clipboard held like a shield against the tidal wave of teenage anxiety. "This year's Northwood High varsity cheer team will represent our school with pride and excellence." Amara's eyes swept the gym, taking in a sea of blonde ponytails and spray tans that surrounded her. It was a familiar landscape, one she had observed but never quite been a part of. Just then, she caught sight of the football team filtering in through the side doors, their practice having just ended. Ethan Sullivan, the star quarterback, led the pack. His swagger was evident even in his sweaty practice gear, a casual arrogance that came from a lifetime of being told he was king. Flanking him was Caleb Vance, his thick arms crossed over his chest, a permanent scowl etched on his face. Trailing a step behind, desperate to belong, was Leo Foster. "The following girls have earned their place on this year's squad," Coach Davies continued. She read through the list alphabetically, each name met with a chorus of squeals and tearful embraces. Amara Hayes. The words hit her like a bolt of lightning. She'd made it. She had actually made it. Around her, a mixture of congratulations and barely concealed surprise rippled through the other girls. Amara kept her expression controlled, professional, just the way her father had taught her. Maintain composure, always. But across the gym, she felt a different kind of attention. Ethan Sullivan was staring, his jaw tight with displeasure. He leaned over, whispering something into Caleb's ear. Caleb shook his head with a look of pure disgust. Leo just looked confused, his eyes darting between his friends, waiting for his cue on how to feel. "Congratulations to our new Northwood Eagles." Coach Davies clapped, oblivious to the silent drama. "Team meeting tomorrow after school. We have a lot of work ahead of us before homecoming." As the celebration swirled around her, Amara gathered her gym bag and headed for the exit. It was no coincidence that the football players had positioned themselves near the doors, a casual blockade that made her pulse quicken. "Excuse me," she said politely, trying to pass. Ethan stepped slightly to his right. He didn't fully block her path, but he made it clear she would have to squeeze by to acknowledge his presence. "So, you're the new addition to our cheer squad." His voice was smooth, but with an undercurrent of ice. "That's right," Amara replied, meeting his gaze directly. Interesting choice by Coach Davies. Caleb's voice carried just enough volume for nearby students to hear. Very progressive. Amara's grip tightened on her bag strap. "Earn my spot, just like everyone else." Leo shifted uncomfortably, a silent follower in a conflict he didn't start but was too afraid to abandon. Ethan smiled, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. It was a predator smile. "Oh, I'm sure you did. It's just that our fans, they have certain expectations about what their cheerleaders should look like." The words hung in the air like toxic smoke. Other students slowed their conversations, sensing the rising tension. "And what exactly should they look like?" Amara asked, her voice impossibly steady, though a fire was building in her chest. Ethan shrugged, a picture of casual cruelty. "You know, traditional." The kind of girls who represent eagle pride. Blonde hair, school spirit, the whole package. Like Barbie dolls, Amara tilted her head slightly, a simple gesture that was somehow a challenge. Caleb stepped forward, his bulk meant to intimidate. Like girls who belong here. Girls who understand what this school is about. I understand perfectly, Amara said, adjusting her bag. This school is about excellence, academics, and representing our community with pride. And that's exactly what I plan to do. For a fleeting moment, Ethan's smile faltered. He hadn't expected the directness, the lack of fear. But it returned, colder than before. We'll see about that. Football season's a long road. Lots of games, lots of pressure. Not everyone's cut out for it. Good thing I am, she said. And with that, she pushed past them without another word, feeling their stares burn into her back. As she walked away, the three boys watched her go, their expressions darkening. Are you kidding me right now? Ethan's voice dropped low, meant only for his friends. They actually put her on the squad. Caleb spat toward a nearby trash can. This is exactly the kind of garbage that's ruining our school. What's next? They're gonna make us kneel for the anthem, too? Dude, what if she's one of those girls who thinks she's better than everyone? Leo finally spoke up, his voice uncertain, but trying to match their aggressive energy. Like, acts all smart and stuff. Oh, she definitely thinks she's something special, Ethan replied, his jaw clenched. Did you see how she looked at us? Like we were the problem. The seed of resentment had been planted, and in the fertile ground of their entitlement and prejudice, it was about to grow into something monstrous. They had no idea who they had just challenged. They saw a girl they didn't want, but Amara Hayes knew exactly what she was, a soldier's daughter, standing on the front line of a battle she hadn't started, but was fully prepared to finish. The harassment started small, like a slow poison. It was almost innocent enough to be dismissed as coincidence, a series of unfortunate events. On Monday morning, Amara arrived at her locker to find it slightly ajar. Her combination lock, which she always spun meticulously, hung open. Someone had rearranged her books. Nothing was missing, just disturbed. A subtle violation. As she reorganized her textbooks, she glanced down the hallway and caught Ethan Sullivan's eye. He was talking to some sophomore girl, but his attention kept drifting back to her, a faint smirk playing on his lips. She knew. By third period, word of a new cheer roster had spread like a virus through the school's social ecosystem. Amara felt the stares in every hallway. She heard the whispered conversations that would abruptly stop the moment she passed. Some students offered encouraging smiles, but others looked at her with open confusion, as if she were a puzzle they couldn't or wouldn't solve. Hey, Amara, Chloe Davis, one of the senior cheerleaders, caught up with her after English class. Chloe was the team captain, genuine and kind. I'm so excited you made the team. We're going to have an amazing season. Thanks, Chloe. I can't wait to get started, Amara replied. Chloe's smile tightened slightly. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong, okay? You earned this, just like the rest of us. The fact that Chloe felt the need to say it at all confirmed what Amara already suspected. People were talking, and not in a good way. During lunch, as she sat with her usual group of friends from the Honor Society, Caleb Vance walked past their table. His shoulder accidentally bumped her chair, hard enough to jostle her backward. Oops, he muttered, without stopping or even looking back. Sorry about that. Her friend Jessica frowned. That was weird. Caleb's never that clumsy. Maybe he's having an off day, Amara replied, but she was already cataloging the incident in her mind, another piece of data in a growing file. The real message, the one that showed this was an organized effort, came during 7th period study hall. Amara pulled out her phone and found a notification from Instagram. Someone had tagged her in a post. The image was a screenshot of the school's announcement about the new cheer team, with her name circled in bright red. The caption read, "Guess Northwood's going woke now. R.I.P. Real Eagle Pride. Hashtag not my cheerleader." The post had already garnered dozens of likes and a handful of comments that made her stomach turn. Most were carefully worded to avoid outright slurs, but the message was crystal clear. Diversity hire much? She doesn't even look like she belongs here. There goes the neighborhood. Amara screenshotted everything before blocking the account, which belonged to a fake profile named Eagle Pride 2024. Her hand was shaking slightly as she put her phone away. Her father had taught her to be honest about threats, a lesson that would soon prove more valuable than she could ever know. This was a threat. At cheer practice that afternoon, the tension was a thick, unbreathable fog. Coach Davies ran them through basic routines, but Amara could feel the sideways glances. Chloe and a few others were welcoming, but girls like Jessica Finch, a junior with perfectly curled blonde hair, seemed to be waiting for her to fail. During one routine, Jessica, who was positioned in front of Amara, kept stepping backward just enough to force Amara to break formation. "Sorry," Jessica would whisper sweetly each time, still getting used to the new spacing. By the end of practice, Amara had been accidentally stepped on twice and elbowed once. The campaign escalated from there. On Tuesday, her cheer shoes went missing from her gym locker. On Wednesday, she arrived to find a banana peel on her car windshield with a crude, racist note attached. She crumpled it up, her hands shaking not with fear, but with a cold, controlled rage. On Thursday, she found her locker vandalized, the words "Go home" scratched deeply into the metal door. She reported it to Principal Thompson, a man whose spine seemed to be made of gelatin. He sighed heavily, looking exhausted by the very idea of confrontation. "I'll have maintenance look at it, Amara. But you know, vandalism is hard to prove without witnesses. Are you sure you want to make a big deal out of this? Sometimes it's better to just let these things blow over. So, I should just accept someone destroying school property because of my race?" Amara asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "Now, let's not jump to conclusions about motivation," he stammered, shifting uncomfortably in his chair. What other motivation could there be? Principal Thompson had no answer. He promised to have a talk with some students. Amara knew it was an empty promise. The system wasn't just failing her. It was actively telling her to endure the abuse in silence. She was on her own. The breaking point, the moment that changed everything, came on Friday. It was homecoming, and the entire school was buzzing with excitement. Despite everything, Amara felt a genuine thrill. She'd learned the routines and was set to perform. As she was walking toward the gym, she noticed a large, muddy puddle right outside the entrance from a recent rainstorm. Most students walked around it without a second thought. Amara was texting her father about pickup arrangements when she heard fast footsteps behind her. She looked up just as Ethan Sullivan grabbed her left arm. "Hey, new girl," he snarled. "Got a message for you." Before she could react, Caleb Vance seized her right arm, his grip like a vice. Leo Foster positioned himself nearby, a willing human shield blocking the view from the parking lot. "What you doing?" Amara demanded, trying to pull free. "Teaching you a lesson," Ethan snarled, his face twisted with hate. "About knowing your place." They shoved her backward toward the puddle. She tried to dig her heels in, but her sneakers slipped on the wet concrete. "Stop it," she yelled. "Oops," Caleb said with mock surprise as they gave her one final, brutal push. Amara hit the muddy water hard. A sharp pain shot through her leg as her uniform skirt tore on a piece of broken concrete hidden beneath the surface. Cold, filthy water soaked through her clothes, clinging to her skin. As she scrambled to her knees, mud streaking her face and arms, the three boys stood over her, their mission accomplished, their satisfaction radiating from them. "Looks like you slipped," Ethan announced, loudly for the benefit of the students who were now stopping to watch. "How clumsy." Chloe and other cheerleaders rushed out. "Oh my God, Amara, are you okay?" Chloe gasped. "I'm fine," Amara managed, but her voice cracked. Jessica Finch, however, pulled out her phone. "This is so going on Instagram. Hashtag epic fail." "Don't you dare," Chloe snapped, but it was too late. The football players were already walking away, high-fiving each other as if they'd just scored a touchdown. "Nice uniform," Caleb called over his shoulder. Ethan laughed. "Really brings out your eyes. Maybe now you'll think twice about where you belong." Amara sat there in the muddy water for a few more seconds. She wasn't paralyzed by shock. She was memorizing the feeling of the cold mud, the sound of their laughter, the sting of humiliation. Most importantly, she was cementing a vow that this could never, ever happen again. It's a terrible feeling, isn't it? To be made to feel powerless. Maybe you felt a version of that in your own life. Let me know in the comments if a story like this resonates with you, because what comes next is about taking that power back. As Chloe helped her up, offering tissues and apologies, Amara barely heard her. She wasn't just sitting in the mud. She was a soldier at rock bottom, surveying the battlefield, and they had no idea what they had just unleashed. Amara drove home in a daze, the victory cheers from the homecoming game echoing like a cruel joke. She hadn't performed. She had spent the game on the sidelines in a borrowed, ill-fitting uniform, a constant, itchy reminder of her public degradation. She walked through the kitchen door, still in her muddy, torn clothes. Her father, Commander Marcus Hayes, was waiting. He took one look at her, at the mud on her face and the rip in her uniform, and set down his coffee mug with deliberate, controlled precision. The air grew still. It was the same look he'd worn when briefing his SEAL team before a dangerous mission. "What happened?" he asked. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of a battleship. Amara had planned to ease into it, but seeing his face, she told him everything. The whispers, the locker, the Instagram post, the banana, the principal's indifference, and finally, the mud puddle. She named all three of them: Ethan Sullivan, Caleb Vance, and Leo Foster. Her father listened without interruption, his face growing progressively darker, his jaw a line of granite. When she finished, a heavy silence stretched between them. "Show me the social media posts," he said. She handed him her phone. He scrolled through the comments, his thumb moving with methodical anger. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "And the school's response was to tell you to keep a low profile?" "Dad, I know what you're thinking." "What am I thinking, Amara? That you want to go to the school and handle this yourself. But that'll just make it worse for me. They'll say I can't fight my own battles." Commander Hayes looked at his daughter, and a flicker of immense pride cut through his anger. "You're right," he conceded. "But this cannot continue." "I know," Amara said, her voice firming with a new resolve. "That's why I need you to teach me." He looked at her, truly looked at her. "Teach you what?" Amara met his gaze, her eyes holding his without wavering. "Everything. How to defend myself. How to fight back. How to make sure this never, ever happens again." Her father was quiet for a long moment, weighing her words. "Physical confrontation should always be the last resort, Amara. Once you cross that line—" "They already crossed it," she cut him off. "They put their hands on me today." "Fair point," he said, leaning back. "But there are other ways to handle bullies. Strategic ways. Ways that leave them no room to claim victimhood." He smiled, but it was a cold, sharp thing. "You are my daughter. You're smarter than those boys. You're more disciplined. And you have something they don't." "What's that?" "Patience. And a father who spent 20 years learning how to neutralize threats. So, tell me everything you know about them. Their schedules, their habits, their weaknesses. We're going to plan this like a military operation." Meanwhile, across town at Ethan Sullivan's house, the three boys were celebrating. They were heroes in their own minds, reliving their glorious victory over a lone girl. "Did you see her face when she hit that water?" Leo laughed, emboldened by their shared cruelty. "Priceless." "The best part was her trying to act tough afterward," Caleb added, guzzling a beer. "Like she wasn't completely humiliated." Ethan sat back in his gaming chair, a king on his throne. "That should send a message. She doesn't belong here, and we're not going to pretend she does." He had no idea that miles away, his entire life was being entered into an intelligence file, his weaknesses cataloged, and his downfall being meticulously planned. Back at the Hayes house, the training began the next morning at 0600 hours in the basement gym. "Forget everything you think you know about fighting," Commander Hayes said, circling his daughter. "Real combat is about efficiency, not entertainment. 3 seconds or less. You identify the threat, you neutralize it, and you get out." He demonstrated on a heavy bag. Throat strike, knee to the solar plexus, heel stomp to the instep. But before any of that, he said, "You observe. The supreme excellence is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Information is power, Amara, and power is leverage." For the next few weeks, Amara lived a double life. By day, she was a quiet, observant student, a ghost in the hallways. She mapped their routes between classes. She noted who they talked to, what they cared about. She used her phone's camera during lunch to observe their group dynamics from a distance. By night, she was in the basement, her muscles burning as her father drilled her in defensive moves, teaching her how to use an attacker's size and momentum against them. Your advantage isn't strength, he explained. It's speed, intelligence, and the element of surprise. They expect a victim. Use that against them. After 3 days of observation, she had 15 pages of notes. Excellent work, her father said, reviewing her intelligence. Now, were there vulnerabilities? Ethan's entire identity is his reputation as a star athlete, Amara reported. He's being scouted by top colleges. Caleb's family is struggling. That football scholarship is his only way out. And Leo is desperate to be accepted. He would crumble if the other two rejected him. Good, Commander Hayes nodded. Now we know where to strike. He looked at his daughter, seeing the steel he had helped to temper. The intelligence gathering was complete. The training had prepared her. The planning was over. It was time for Phase 1 to begin. Phase 1. Target Ethan Sullivan, Commander Hayes announced over breakfast on a Thursday morning. He's the leader. Take him down, and you send a shockwave through their entire structure. He slid a small, discreet package across the table. Inside was a small plastic bag containing a few white pills and an old, obscured prescription bottle. Where did you get these? Amara asked, her eyes wide. The nurse's office has poor security, her father stated matter-of-factly. These are expired anxiety medications that were meant to be disposed of. You're not planting illegal drugs. You're planting a situation that college scouts find unacceptable. Amara stared at the pills. This felt different, colder. This could ruin his future. Just like he's trying to ruin yours, her father said, his voice gentle but firm. The difference, Amara, is that you didn't start this war. They shoved you into a mud puddle in front of your peers. They made it clear they won't stop. Sometimes, the only way to deal with a bully is to hit them where it hurts them most. Their privilege. She nodded slowly, the memory of the cold mud and hot laughter stealing her resolve. She tucked the package into her backpack. On Friday afternoon, Amara waited in the parking lot. Her intelligence had paid off. She knew Ethan's routine perfectly. He always went to the weight room before practice, leaving his expensive truck unlocked. No one would ever be stupid enough to mess with the star quarterback's vehicle. Her heart pounded as she approached the truck, her movements casual, as if walking to her own car 3 rows away. The coast was clear. She quickly opened the passenger door. The interior smelled of expensive cologne and entitlement. With shaking hands, she slipped the prescription bottle onto the passenger seat, positioning it so it would be visible to anyone looking for it. She scattered the loose pills in the center console among the spare change. She closed the door, walked away, and didn't look back. Her part was done. 2 hours later, during football practice, an anonymous tip was called into the school's drug hotline, reporting suspicious activity around Ethan Sullivan's truck. Principal Thompson and the school resource officer, Deputy Collins, approached Ethan on the field. "Sullivan, we need to search your vehicle," the deputy announced. "What? Why?" Ethan's confidence faltered for the first time since Amara had known him. "Anonymous tip. Probably nothing, but we have to check." It didn't take a few minutes. Deputy Collins found the bottle almost immediately. The loose pills in the console sealed Ethan's fate. "I've never seen that before in my life." Ethan's voice cracked with panic. "Someone planted them. I'm being set up." "Who would do that, Ethan?" Principal Thompson asked. Ethan's eyes darted around the circle of faces, his teammates, his coaches. For the first time, he looked genuinely frightened. His gaze swept across the field and landed for a moment on the cheer squad, where Amara Hayes was stretching, seemingly oblivious. I don't know," he stammered. From the bleachers, Amara watched the scene unfold. She saw the handcuffs, the stunned silence of his friends, and the dawning horror on Ethan's face as he was placed in the back of a police cruiser. State University withdrew their recruitment offer that night. The local news reported the arrest. The damage was done. Phase 1 was complete. One down. But the enforcer was still out there, and with his leader gone, Caleb Vance was even more volatile. His downfall would require a different, more elegant strategy. Phase 2, Caleb Vance, her father said that evening. This one is different. He's not just entitled, he's desperate. And desperate people are more dangerous. We don't need to plant evidence this time. We just need to make sure the right people find out what he's already doing. Amara's intelligence file had revealed that Caleb was selling illegal, high-nicotine vapes to underclassmen behind the gym to make extra cash. His need for money was his greatest vulnerability. This time, Amara felt a pang of conflict. She knew his family needed the money from his scholarship. But then she remembered his hands grabbing her arms, his voice snarling in her face, his laughter as she sat covered in mud. Caleb had made his choices long before she got involved. On Tuesday afternoon, during Caleb's usual selling time, Amara positioned herself in the nearby art building, her phone camera ready. She was a ghost, an invisible observer. She recorded everything. 2 clear transactions, money changing hands for vaping devices. She then anonymously submitted the video to Principal Thompson, along with screenshots of Caleb's Venmo transactions that matched the timestamps. The confrontation happened during third period. Deputy Collins and Principal Thompson pulled a confused Caleb out of class. A search of his locker revealed 12 vaping devices and nearly $300 in cash. "This is a setup," he bellowed in the hallway. "Someone's targeting our team." "Mr. Vance," Principal Thompson replied, his voice finally firm now that he had irrefutable video evidence. "We have you on camera selling these to minors. You are suspended pending expulsion hearings. The police will handle the criminal charges." Word spread like fire. By lunch, everyone knew. Northwood High's top linebacker was facing expulsion and criminal charges. Later that day, Caleb's girlfriend, Ashley, found Amara at her locker. "He's saying someone set him up?" Ashley said, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "That someone's targeting the football players. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" Amara met her gaze, her expression a perfect mask of neutrality. "Why would I know anything about Caleb's illegal business?" "Maybe," she added quietly, "they're just not as perfect as everyone thought they were." Ashley's face hardened. "He's going to lose everything because of this." "That's really sad," Amara said, and she meant it. But Caleb made his own choices. As Ashley walked away, Amara felt the heavy weight of her actions. Justice, her father had said, wasn't always satisfying. Sometimes it just felt necessary. 2 down, 1 to go. And the last one, Leo Foster, was already starting to crack under the pressure. With Ethan expelled and Caleb facing criminal charges, Leo Foster reached his breaking point. The fear that had been simmering inside him boiled over into a paranoid rage. That Tuesday evening, he made the calls. "We need to meet," he told Ethan, who was under house arrest. "I figured out who's doing this to us." "Doing what?" Ethan's voice was bitter. "Come on, man. You really think it's a coincidence we both got busted, right, after we messed with that Hayes girl? She's behind this. I know she is." An hour later, the 3 of them, Ethan having snuck out, sat in Caleb's garage. Their usual swagger was gone, replaced by a toxic mixture of fear and fury. "She's been playing games with us," Leo said, his voice gaining a desperate confidence. "It's time to show her what happens when you mess with the wrong people." "What are you talking about?" Caleb asked. "I'm talking about ending this," Leo said, his eyes glittering. "We find her, corner her somewhere private, and we get some answers. We make sure she understands that some battles aren't worth fighting." The dangerous logic of cornered animals took over. They used Caleb's mom's access to the school's parent portal to find Amara's address. 1247 Maple Street, a quiet, suburban neighborhood. "Perfect," Ethan said, studying the house on Google Street View. "Nice and isolated. This ends tonight. What if she calls the police?" Leo asked, a flicker of his usual cowardice returning. "She won't get the chance," Ethan replied, his voice cold as ice. Amara had developed a routine of evening walks, a way to clear her head and maintain a sense of normalcy. On Wednesday evening, she set out on her usual route. The sun had set, and streetlights cast long, dancing shadows. She was 3 blocks from home when she heard it, a car engine slowing behind her. Her training kicked in instantly. She didn't turn. Using the reflection in a parked car's window, she assessed the threat. A dark pickup truck, Caleb's truck, crawling along the curb, matching her pace. Never let them choose the location of the confrontation. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. The truck's doors slammed shut. "Hey, Amara." She recognized Ethan's voice. She kept walking, pulling out her phone. "Don't even think about it." Caleb's voice came from her right. He'd circled around through the park, cutting off her path. Leo appeared from behind a parked car to her left, completing the triangle. They had planned this ambush. "We need to talk," Ethan said, approaching from behind. "And this time, Daddy's not here to protect you." Amara stopped and turned, keeping all three in her line of sight. "What do you want?" Her voice was steady, the adrenaline in her veins a cold, sharpening focus. "We want answers." Ethan stepped closer. "We know you're behind everything." "I don't know what you're talking about," she said calmly. "Stop lying." Caleb's face was flushed with anger. "You destroyed our lives. Actions have consequences," Amara replied. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you put your hands on me." The words hit them like a physical blow. "So you admit it?" Ethan snarled. "I admit," she said, her voice rising with controlled power, "that bullies eventually face justice, one way or another. We're not cowards." Caleb exploded, lunging toward her. Amara was ready. She sidestepped his clumsy charge, driving her elbow hard into his ribs as he passed. He stumbled, gasping for air. She immediately pivoted to face Ethan, who was rushing her from behind. Her father's training took over completely. Strike fast, strike hard, create distance. She ducked under Ethan's arms and drove a fist into his solar plexus. As he doubled over, winded, she saw Leo trying to grab her from the side. She spun, caught his wrist, and used his own momentum to flip him over her hip. He hit the asphalt with a cry of pain. Caleb, having recovered, came at her again, more cautiously this time. He was bigger and stronger, but Amara was faster and infinitely better trained. She feinted left, then struck right, her palm connecting with his nose with a sickening crack. Blood spurted as he staggered backward, stunned, furious, and desperate. Ethan pulled something from his pocket. A knife. The blade gleamed under the streetlight. "Enough games," he gasped. "You want to play war? Let's play war." His face was a mask of pure rage as he lunged, aiming for her midsection. Amara's mind went crystal clear. She caught his wrist with both hands, using his forward momentum to redirect the blade away from her body. She twisted sharply, applying excruciating pressure to his thumb joint until he cried out and the knife clattered to the ground. Before he could recover, she drove her knee into his stomach and followed with a sharp uppercut that snapped his head back. He collapsed, semi-conscious. 3 opponents, neutralized in less than 30 seconds. Amara stood over them, breathing hard but unhurt, the reality of what just happened sinking in. They had cornered her. They had brought a knife, and she had one. In the distance, she heard the beautiful, piercing sound of approaching sirens. Someone had seen. Someone had called. It was over. The first police cruiser arrived in a storm of flashing red and blue lights, cutting through the darkness. An officer stepped out, her hand resting on her weapon. "Nobody move," she commanded. "My name is Amara Hayes," Amara said, her voice calm and clear. "These 3 boys cornered me. One of them pulled a knife. I defended myself. She attacked us." Caleb groaned, blood streaming from his broken nose. Just then, Commander Hayes' truck roared around the corner. He had been monitoring police scanners and recognized the street name. He strode onto the scene, his military bearing a silent, powerful statement. "That's my daughter," he announced to the officers. "What's her status?" "She appears uninjured, sir." Claims she was attacked. Commander Hayes surveyed the scene with a professional eye. 3 larger boys on the ground, his daughter standing calmly, and a knife on the asphalt that clearly didn't belong to her. He knew at once. "Did you follow protocol?" he asked her quietly. "Yes, sir," she replied. "Avoided confrontation until cornered. Used minimum necessary force." The boys' story quickly fell apart. Their own words betrayed them. "She's been setting us up for weeks." Tyler yelled, "Just for putting her in her place at school. You didn't belong on our team." Caleb added, "You never belonged at our school." The racial undertones were now blaring, impossible to ignore. The officer exchanged a look with her partner. "I think we need to have some very serious conversations downtown," she said, "about harassment, assault with a deadly weapon, and potential civil rights violations." Civil rights? Leo's voice cracked with a new kind of fear. "Targeting someone because of their race is a federal crime, son," the officer said grimly. That was the moment they finally understood. This wasn't a high school drama anymore. This was a federal case. Commander Hayes presented the police with the dossier Amara had been keeping for weeks. Screenshots, witness lists, dates, and times. The evidence was overwhelming. The story exploded. What started as a personal fight for dignity became a national conversation. The FBI opened a federal hate crime investigation. The Ring doorbell camera footage from a neighbor's house went viral, showing the entire confrontation. 3 large boys cornering one girl, the glint of the knife, and Amara's calm, efficient defense. The headline screamed, "Teen girl fights off racist attackers." 2 weeks later, Amara and her father sat in their living room, being interviewed by a national news anchor. "Amara, when those boys cornered you, what was going through your mind?" the anchor asked. "That this was what my father had been preparing me for," she replied, her composure unwavering. "Not the fight itself, but the moment when I had to choose between being a victim and standing up for myself." The school district found itself under federal investigation. Principal Thompson was placed on administrative leave. The football coach was fired. 3 months later, the plea negotiations began. The evidence was airtight. Ethan Sullivan's expensive lawyer tried to get the charges reduced. The district attorney just laughed. "Your client brought a knife to attack a 16-year-old girl because of her race. We have him on video. And in his jailhouse calls, he's still using racial slurs and promising to finish the job when he gets out. Does that sound like remorse to you?" The final court session took place on a cold March morning. The courtroom was packed. Amara sat beside the DA, a picture of grace and strength. Across the aisle, the 3 boys sat with their families, their lives in ruins. Judge Patricia Reynolds, a woman with 30 years on the bench, reviewed the case file. Her voice was like steel. "Mr. Sullivan, stand up." Ethan rose shakily. "In 30 years on this bench," the judge began, "I have seen many young people make mistakes. But what you did goes far beyond a mistake. You targeted a fellow student because of her race, escalated that harassment, and ultimately attacked her with a deadly weapon. Your recent communications show no remorse, only continued hatred. I sentence you to 4 years in state prison." A sob tore from Ethan's mother. "Mr. Vance, stand up." Tyler's knees buckled slightly. "You were an active participant. 3 years in state prison." "Mr. Mills." Brandon was openly weeping. "Unlike your co-defendants, you have shown genuine remorse and cooperated fully. 18 months in a juvenile detention facility." Finally, the judge looked at Amara. "Miss Hayes, would you like to make a statement?" Amara stood, her voice carrying to every corner of the silent courtroom. "I didn't want any of this to happen," she began. She turned to face the 3 boys. "You thought you could intimidate me into disappearing. Instead, you taught me that standing up to bullies is the only way to stop them from hurting other people. I hope prison teaches you what empathy and common decency couldn't. I hope you learn that every person deserves respect. And I hope you spend the rest of your lives making up for the hatred you have spread." The gavel fell. Justice had been served. 1 year later, Amara Hayes stood at the podium in Northwood High's auditorium, addressing an assembly on anti-bullying and racial justice. The school had been transformed. A new administration, a new zero-tolerance harassment policy, and a new culture of inclusivity were taking root. "A year ago," she began, her voice confident, "I thought my biggest challenge would be learning cheer routines. I never imagined I'd have to fight for my right to simply exist in this school. But I learned something important. Bullies only have the power you give them. When you stand up, when you speak out, when you demand justice, they lose that power. The fates of her attackers had unfolded as a direct result of their choices. Jake Morrison had been involved in a racial incident in state prison, and his sentence had been extended. The Golden Boy quarterback was now a career criminal. Caleb Vance, after a rough start, had begun taking educational programs and writing letters of apology, showing the first signs of genuine change. And Brandon Mills, who had served his full sentence, had sought her out 2 weeks prior. He stood on her front porch, accompanied by his mother, his eyes filled with a remorse that seemed real. "I don't expect you to forgive me, Amara," he'd said, his voice shaking. "I just wanted you to know that I understand now. How wrong we were. What we did was evil, and you had every right to fight back." Amara had looked at the broken boy who had once helped humiliate her. She felt no satisfaction, only a tired acknowledgement that this, too, was a part of justice. "I hope you've learned from this, Leo," she told him. "I hope you spend the rest of your life making sure other kids never face what I faced." "I will," he promised. "I promise." Standing in her doorway, watching him walk away from her life forever, Amara felt a strange sense of closure. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a recognition that people could change. That evening, she found her father in the basement gym. "How did the assembly go?" he asked. "Good," she said. "The kids are listening. Harvard is going to be lucky to have you," he smiled. She had been accepted with a full scholarship, her essay on overcoming adversity and fighting for justice impressing the admissions committee. "I keep thinking about what you said," she reflected, "about creating your own justice when the system fails." "Do you regret any of it?" he asked. Amara considered the question seriously. The stress, the media attention, the threats, but also the friendships, the respect she had earned, and the knowledge that she had created real change. "No," she said finally. "I regret that it was necessary, but I don't regret fighting back." A year ago, she was a girl trying to fit into a hostile world. Now, she was a young woman who had proven that justice was possible. She had fought for her place, and in doing so, had made that place a little safer for everyone who would come after her. The battle was over. The victory was complete, and Amara Hayes was ready for whatever came next. Thank you for joining us for this story. The courage to stand up for yourself is a light that can inspire countless others. If this story moved you, please give this video a like to help it reach more people who need to hear it, and be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on our next story. Until then, be kind, be strong, and have a wonderful day.